So this afternoon, shortly before 3 o'clock, a group of protesters gained access to the grounds of the mansion at the governor's mansion. WSP immediately responded from the first call that we had that breach. WSP is dispersing the crowd in a calm and orderly fashion at this time. There have been no reports of violence or property damage that we know of at this time. The governor and his family are in a safe location, and they were never in danger. WSP is investigating how the breach occurred and will take necessary steps to make sure that there is no repeat occurrence of this event. We urge the public to remain calm in these troubled and troubling times. Remind visitors to the Capitol campus that while your rights to free speech are honored and protected, you do not have the right to commit illegal acts. Entering the governor's mansion grounds is illegal and is dangerous. With that, we'll take questions.
Can you talk a bit, obviously all day today we watched the events in DC and saw how quickly things could become troubled. Do you feel like you were properly prepared for what you dealt with at the governor's mansion, seeing how upset people were and how people were acting at other state capitals and in DC?
Yes, there was. It always takes time to put resources into place, but today's events were peaceful throughout most of the day. The people that were here were expressing their rights in a very respectable fashion.
There were members of the media that were pepper sprayed. I don't know if I would consider that peaceful.
From what we heard, that was not on the Capitol campus. So, but the incidents we were dealing with, from what I heard, were very peaceful throughout the day. So we had resources staged, and it just took a little bit to get here, but as you see, the resources did arrive reasonably quickly.
Sergeant, was anyone arrested?
I don't believe we have made any arrests at this time, but we can put that out on the Twitter later to make sure if that's correct.
Did you think about, given that it's illegal to break into the governor's grounds, did you think about arresting all those people?
I'd have to look. I got here kind of late into the game, so I will check into that, but we don't have that information at this time.
We saw one trooper who was trying to stop that massive flow of people when they broke through the gate. Were there enough troopers staged in close enough vicinity, do you feel, given what happened today?
Well, we'll evaluate, as I said, the situation, how it occurred, and how we can do better in the future. So we will of course look into how we responded and any way we can do better.
You said that the breaking onto the grounds was illegal. Is there any sort of additional violation when you're armed and also breaking into the grounds of the governor's mansion?
I'd have to look into that, RCW, to see if that being armed changes that, but I know it is trespassing to be on those grounds.
Was the governor home at that hour?
The governor was never in danger. We're not going to comment on whether he was there or not. Yes, sir.
Now you were monitoring this rally around 1:35.
I can't hear you, sir. I'm sorry.
Around 20 to 2, during the rally, the organizers announced we're going to take a picture and then we're going to march to the governor's mansion. At 2 o'clock, you still have nobody in front of the gate, even though they declared their intent of what they were going to do. How can you say you were prepared if they told you what they were going to do, they did it, and then you responded?
Well, often in these rallies, people say they're going to march to the governor's mansion. They march to the gates, and they stand and do their rally in front of the gates and don't try to breach. So, like I said, we will evaluate the situation and see how we can do better in the future.
Sergeant, can those folks who did break through the gate and trespass on that property expect to be charged, prosecuted?
There will be investigations on what happened, and we'll look into what's appropriate. And if there are charges appropriate, we'll forward those to the prosecutor's office for determination.
Managed to get the group that had breached the fence off of the property. How did that process go?
We used an orderly fashion. We tried to make sure everybody was safe, and we gained compliance through talking to them and working them out. And then we got the forces in there, and then we got the people that were on the grounds off the grounds.
There were no munitions applied or deployed?
No, it was very peaceful when they left. Actually, they made their point, and then they left. Shortly after. They were occupied it for a little while, but there was no violence and no property damage that we were aware of.
Did they go into the mansion?
No, they did not make access to the mansion itself.
And no damage to the building?
Not that I'm aware of.
There were lawmakers on the ground today, legislators. Did any legislators assist in trying to talk to the crowd? Did they join and were they part of that effort?
I don't know what the legislature did. I can't speak for them.
Were there any lawmakers on the ground? Did they come out?
I don't know that answer, sir. I'm sorry.
What may happen next week with the start of the session? We've already heard for weeks now of people telling folks to come here. Is this a bad sign of things that come next week?
I don't know, but Mr. Loftus is going to address next week's activities here in a little bit.
What kind of response will there be from state troopers tonight around the governor's mansion?
We'll continue to monitor the situation. It appears to be breaking up pretty well, but we'll keep resources in the area just to make sure there's not a reoccurrence.
How long the protesters were behind the fence? How much time passed?
I want to say approximately half hour, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that.
Was the gate open when they pushed through? Or did
I was not there,
break-
so I haven't seen the video
Okay.
to answer that.
Yeah. The gate was put back, so it doesn't seem like it was broken. And
The gate is currently in position, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't
so
know
it
of any
doesn't seem
damage
like
that
it was
actually occurred to it.
broken
So.
down, but
Yeah,
apparently
I
it
don't
was-
know.
That's also my point of clarification. You said that there was no property damage based on your understanding, but it looked like the gate was broken. Just hoping for some clarity
I
there.
was just there a few moments ago, and the gate was standing tall. And in fact, I reached through it to talk to one of my coworkers, and he was on the other side of the fence. So it was standing tall as from where I was at.
Supported by any other area law enforcement agencies?
And we're very appreciative to our partner agencies, Thurston County Sheriff's Department, the Olympia Police Department. We had the Washington State Fish and Wildlife officers here assisting us, and there may have been others. We put out a request for assistance, and many agencies responded to that request, and we really appreciate that partnership we have with them.
There was not a large law enforcement presence on campus visible today.
Correct.
When you knew people were heading to the mansion and you were able to monitor that, are people starting to move there, or was that still the approach to take a wait and see approach? Because it was a while before backup arrived.
I wasn't there for those decisions, so I'd have to look into it. As I said, we'll evaluate how we did and look for ways to improve.
Can you talk about any incidents who are off the immediate Capitol campus that you know about?
I can't address those. You'd have to talk to the Olympia Police Department for that, because off campus we don't manage off campus.
I thought Chris Enger talked about 11th and Capitol. Is that not part of the
11th and Capitol is part of the city of Olympia, and Olympia PDA is there.
Can you talk a bit about what goes, I know you said you're doing an investigation into the people that trespassed on the property. Can you talk a bit about what goes into a decision to make an arrest immediately as opposed to what goes into making a decision to arrest later after an investigation?
Well, if you make one arrest, that could agitate the crowd and make things worse. So if they're not creating violence at the moment and they're not destroying property, we have time on our hands, and we want to try to keep it as peaceful as possible. And in this case, it worked because we were able to get everybody off the property without any altercations or any violence. So that's one of the reasons that we take into consideration on making an arrest right there, is agitating the crowd and making things worse in the situation.
All summer, in Olympia, we've seen this State Patrol plane overhead a lot during demonstrations of all sorts. Why wasn't that up in the sky today?
It was.
It wasn't? Okay, so when did it?
Earlier, it was not, but once things started
okay.
happening, it was deployed.
Did
Watching
go.
the videos feed
Got it.
before again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was deployed after you called me earlier. It was deployed.
Got
and
it.
it was up there. So.
Okay.
Did your communications staff know that Judge Peja of Kitsap County does allow for trespass on private property when there's no trespass signage? There's a court case from 2018 that she decided on that.
I'm not able to speak on that.
This uniformed trooper or cadet who was there at the gate at the time of the breach, do you know? We saw her there. Is she a full sworn trooper? Is she a cadet?
I know the sergeant in charge of the mansion detachment was there, so it's probably her you're referring to. So she's a fully commissioned sergeant with the Washington State Patrol.
And was she the only one there? Are there other?
I don't know the answer. So.
Do you have any idea of the size of the response before the incident and now after?
I could get that for you if you'd like, but I don't have the numbers right now. It was a pretty significant response. We had a lot of agencies and a lot of assistance.
Do you know how many actual number of people raided onto the grounds?
I don't have that number yet, no. Sorry.
Can we talk a bit about next week when the expectation is that there'll be multiple groups of protesters for the start of the legislative session, when there'll be a modified amount of lawmakers on campus? Are you prepared for large protests with a focus on access to the Capitol building, which has been closed to the public for about a year?
We've been working on that for a number of days now. There will be a substantial law enforcement presence, including the Washington State Patrol and other law enforcement agencies. As Sergeant Wright mentioned, we work closely with the Olympia Police Department and with the Thurston County Sheriff's Department. We've been meeting with those folks to make sure that we have a coordinated and hopefully seamless response. But in a time where people are agitated and come on campus sometime to wreak havoc, havoc is wreaked. You have to recognize that we have to first and foremost protect life, and that means your lives as the media. That means our lives and law enforcement. That means the protesters themselves. Certainly, it means the senators and the legislators and the people who work in these buildings. So everyone, we have a responsibility to protect them. And so sometimes we accept disruption if that disruption, as Sergeant Wright mentioned, if that disruption is leading towards the situation dispersing, we'll accept that so that we keep people safe.
Is the Capitol campus at this moment closed, or can people still walk up with this?
People can still walk up to the steps. The Capitol campus is not closed. However, most of the buildings, because of COVID, are closed to the public. There are still operations, but most of them have some level of restriction. So, we've had people say, hell, the Capitol's in shutdown. It's ever since March and April, we've been in this level of restricted access because of COVID. Drew, you had a question before about
Is this a bad sign of what we can expect next week, or could this make it even worse?
I think if we try to prognosticate, we'll be like most people who try to prognosticate, we'll be wrong. What we can do is be ready for a tough situation. The old adage, you're ready for a grizzly bear and you hope for the chipmunk, and so we'll be ready for large crowds. We'll be ready for belligerence. We'll be ready for conflict. We do not have intelligence at this point that the groups that are coming plan to be conflicted with one another. If you were here during the December 12th event, those were groups that were confronted with one another, and that's a different type of scenario that takes a different type of planning and a different type of interaction and intervention. The groups that have indicated they're coming seem to be folks who are coming to express themselves about their political beliefs. Their First Amendment rights to express themselves are something that men and women like Darren and Sergeant Wright here get up and they put their life on the line to protect people's rights to express themselves. We take that very seriously. We take that very seriously, that no matter what you're saying, no matter how you're saying it, no matter what political persuasion, what your beliefs are, you have a right in this country to say those things. What you do not have a right to do is illegal or dangerous activity. Going through a locked gate, climbing over a fence, however the property was breached today, going into a restricted area where people who are paid professionals to defend and protect that space, and a place where our governor and our elected leaders live. The safety of our elected leaders is one of the democratic institutions that we all hold dear. Threatening and challenging those institutions, whether it's a person, a building, or a facility, or even the idea of that safety, is an assault on democracy. We are paid to defend that. We're paid to do that through law enforcement. We're paid to do that through our words, but we're also paid to do that through our relationships with the people of the state. We want a respectful and dignified approach to political discourse. What we saw breaching a gate and going into a secured area is not a respectful and dignified approach to free speech. It's an illegal act, and that's how we have to respond to it.
Today's events change how you will respond or prepare for Monday?
I would tell you that the planning for the coming events have been very robust, and I don't see what happened today being anything that's going to add or subtract from that. We've all watched what's unfolded across the country and in Washington, D.C. I think we all saw that with shock and horror and disappointment. But if we see that sort of disappointing behavior, we will be ready for it. We don't care about people's politics. We don't care about what they want to say. What we care about is that they have the right to say it, but they have the right to say it safely, and they don't say it in a way that infringes on other people's rights and other people's safety. Going through a locked gate into a restricted area with where we have executive protection responsibility is a foolish escalation, and it's simply not acceptable. Anything else? Again, yes. We will be either here or in this general facility. I'll be sending out a thing on Friday, but at 10, 1, and 4 on Monday. Hopefully 1 and 4 won't be needed. Hopefully it will not be as conflicted a situation as some people fear. And we will just be able to talk about process and call it a day. But if there are ongoing threats and any kind of chance of violence or any sort of further disruption, we'll be here throughout the duration of that. Sergeant? Yeah, okay.
Has there been any other times in history that you know of that fence has been breached?
I don't know of any time in the history of
What was the question?
Has the governor's mansion or property been breached before?
The property has been breached by individuals in the past. We have occasional people that try to breach the grounds on an individual basis, but this is the first time that I know of in recent history that there's been a large breach like this. So, excuse me just a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
The owner's got some new
So,
information.
while Mr. Loftus was speaking, I did check. The gate was damaged at the initial breach. It is able to be still standing at this time, but there was some damage incurred during that initial breach. So, that property damage did occur.
Does that imply it was pushed open?
I don't know how. I wasn't. Oh, sorry, I wasn't there, but I do know. I have been told that there was damage to the gate and it will need some repairs.
Is it in working order now?
It's standing at this time. Yes. So.
Sergeant, do you feel like the State Patrol was prepared for what happened today?
We can always do better. I wasn't here for the initial portion of it. I came in, I was called in as a result of this. So I don't have that answer. There's always a chance to do better. So.
Thank you.
If you need anything else, you've got my contact information. If you need any information about the Capitol campus itself, let us know.